Good evening. T. Walker here. Walker Wine session number 14. There's this thunderstorm in the area, and second time I've lost power. Good thing we've got some wine. This is an impromptu kind of tasting. I wanted to do a tasting today and forgot about it. So I wasn't particularly prepared. So I wanted to open this wine as it was something that I just came across, I did not pay for, in a way a gift if you will. But this is Robert Mondavi 2019 Cabernet Sauvignon. It is their Bourbon Barrel Expression. This isn't normally something that I would review, or I shouldn't say review. This is not normally something I would buy, and I guess henceforth probably review, but I'm glad that I've got it. And I used to sell Robert Mondavi wines, and I think that they do a phenomenal job across the board with their wines. They have some fantastic single vineyard wines. I really enjoy the Tocolon vineyard whites and reds that they make. Their Sauvignon Blanc from the Tocolon site is delicious. And their cabs are fantastic as well. A wine like this that states bourbon barrel on it, I get a little wary about, but the food that I'm having tonight is a little bit spicy. I am going to presume before I dive into this wine that it's going to have some type of sweetness to it. It was actually somewhat, I haven't searched long and hard on the internet for technical specs of this wine. So I will do so in between taking a break now and coming back to see how this wine's opened up. But I just wanted to kind of dive right in. So this is at least 75% Cabernet Sauvignon. It is California appellation 2019. So the grapes can come from anywhere within California. It's at least 75% Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's gone into some form of bourbon barrels, I'm assuming, as they put that on the label. So I'm going to guess it's got a sweet vanilla-y bourbon flavor go on. Definitely a little like dusty oak action. I'm not getting the huge vanilla bourbon blast that I was expecting, actually. And one of the things I came across online in my 3 minutes of research prior to this was that on Total Wine there were maybe 400, 300, 400, 500 reviews. And I want to say roughly 4.5 stars out of 5. So this wine has a lot of reviews on Total Wine, obviously because of its price point, which is, probably around $10, $12, $13 in most places, at most supermarkets, very accessible. And so I think for me, it's kind of fun to visit this wine just because of that aspect. It's not something that I would buy just because of the kind of marketing scheme that it has with, just using the bourbon barrels as leverage, if you will. But if they make a good product, they make a good product, and I'm all good with that. I'm all in full support of that. So the sweet kind of fruits coming out for sure. But on the nose, the nose is actually much more appealing than I thought, and it's got a deepness, a richness to it, especially in the fruit realm. There's definitely a toastiness that you get. That toasty char. Now I'm getting the actual vanilla, the bourbon component. Not really the vanilla, but the bourbon component. that kind of has this heady alcohol meets, corn wheat whiskey, I mean, there's no other way to put it. I'm actually surprised. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised. It says bourbon barrel in the front, but I'm surprised it smells somewhat like actual bourbon. That sounds really silly to say. 14.5 alcohol. I'm a little surprised by this wine. My first taste is that it's quite approachable. It has a little bit of complexity to it, and you can see it. There's clarity to that complexity. I might worry if I had more than maybe one glass of this wine, how I would feel later on tonight or even right after. Just because I feel like a lot has gone into making this wine, in the sense of maybe a lot of cellar work. We'll kind of just leave it at that for now, because I don't want to give off an air of negativity towards this wine for any reason. So there's definitely that bourbon. To me, it goes more towards corn. I don't drink much bourbon. I have enjoyed certainly a few over my lifetime, but I'm more of a Scotch person. Usually bourbon is too sweet and cloying, sticking to the palate for me, so I tend to steer clear. I mean, up front, you get the big blast of a multitude of cherries, black cherry, maraschino cherry. You definitely get a kind of a big, to me, kind of powdery oak type of influence. You get the bourbon there, kind of that middle towards the back end that settles. My first thoughts of this wine are, wow, I'm surprised it's not too shabby. So I'm looking forward to coming back to this. We're gonna come back in just maybe, 15, 20, 30 minutes. See how it opens up. I'm gonna have it with some food, some Mexican style of food. And we'll be right back. Woo-wee. All right, I am back after 30 minutes. I poured myself a new glass as I took the other glass with me and consumed it with dinner. And my initial thoughts are that this wine, especially with my food, but it went really well with the food, or the food actually enhanced the wine. To me, this wine, it has an intensity to it, and for me, drinking it on its own, it's a little bit overbearing. Not to get into technical thoughts that I might have about this wine, because I don't particularly want to cull this wine from the herd, but this style of wine, if you will, has kind of been produced or manufactured to fit a palate that wants something that's very smooth, which I actually remember seeing in one of the top total wine reviews. Just scrolling down, it caught my eye. But it's a very smooth wine. There's very little tannins. It has a certain sweetness about it. It's not particularly sweet, but I'm sure there's some residual sugar there. And it's just a little too weighty, a little too cloying, and for me, it needed to be toned down with some food. I had kind of spiced Mexican food, which actually I thought kind of incorporated this wine better for my palate. So that was actually a pretty cool experience to have with this wine, which I certainly would not want to drink on its own, although I'm sure a lot of people do drink it on its own. Let's check out the nose and the palate again and see if anything's changed or opened up. I feel like the bourbon component is coming out more at the moment, at least to the forefront of the wine. You get that kind of corn whiskey high note, and the corn also has a deep richness to it too. But so it's kind of overtly there in the glass, and not particularly a bad thing. I think it's interesting and it's unique, and you don't see it a whole lot. I think there's a few other wines, maybe a Zinfandel that goes into bourbon barrel, if I recollect properly. But yeah, this, at the end of the day, let's give it a whirl. I'm getting ahead of myself. It has a juiciness to it, and that makes it appealing. Joking about times past and reminiscing. This is the type of wine, if you're drinking amongst wine friends who appreciate good wine, you've had too many bottles that night. Most of them were quite good, probably quite expensive. And at the end of the night, as it progresses, the evening progresses, people tend to want to open up more really good wine when they're inebriated and their palate's not so great. This wine is perfect for that occasion, as it doesn't break your bank, and it still kind of packs this big punch. For me, at the end of the day, it's not something that I will personally revisit or purchase, but I've found it very educational, and I can see why people like it. And it has this style of wine has a place in the market, and so I'm thankful to have had it, and to share it with you. Let's give it one last sip before I tune out. We're gonna do some educational series, like I've mentioned, and I'm gonna do at the minimum one that kind of goes into not particularly wine styles, although we'll go into that, but wine production. What goes into wine production, and what makes a small production, boutique production, micro production, these smaller family-owned wineries, what they may do differently in the cellar, in the winemaking cellar, as opposed to a larger winery making a lot of wine, and in a way more of a manufacturer than a producer, if you will. So this wine has to be consistent for Robert Mondavi, and so many other wines that make a lot of wine every year. They have to be very consistent. If they have an off vintage, they have hundreds of thousands of cases, most likely, going down the drain, and that's a big pill to swallow. So we will talk about the ins and outs and my personal opinions and thoughts and what I've seen of what you can do and what is out there in the winemaking realm, and how that relates to what you receive in the bottle at the end of the day, and how that might affect you and your palate and how you feel, how the wine hits your palate. And anyways, we'll leave it at that. But I think it's important, and so we'll go over that here in the very near future. Thank you for tuning in. Robert Mondavi, Cali Cab, Bourbon Barrel 2019. Ching ching.